Listen up, ladies and gentlemen. Our fugitive's been on the run for 90 minutes. The average foot speed on uneven ground is 4 miles an hour. That gives us a radius of 6 miles an hour. What I want from each and every one of you is a laser target search of every residence, gas station, warehouse, hen house, outhouse, doghouse. In that area, checkpoints go up at every 15 miles. Our fugitive's name is Dr. Richard Kimball. Go get him.
Your fugitive's name is Dr. Richard Kimball.
He's still at large, he's armed, he's dangerous. What do you intend to do?
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to talk about one of my favorite movies of all time, The Fugitive. And I also want to talk about its sequel from 1998, U.S. Marshals, because I feel like nobody talks about that movie, and I want to talk about that movie. So The Fugitive first came out in 1993. It is directed by Andrew Davis, who also directed Under Siege and Above the Law because he really enjoyed working with Steven Seagal, but he also worked with Tommy Lee Jones on Under Siege, which he cast as Deputy Sam Gerard in The Fugitive, opposite of Harrison Ford in what I think is his best role. I am a huge fan of The Fugitive. It's a 1993 action thriller. This movie actually won Tommy Lee Jones Best Supporting Actor Academy Award, and it's well deserved because I truly believe that Sam Gerard is Tommy Lee Jones' best character. I find it just unbelievable. I love everything about his character. I love that he's the smartest person in the room. He's always 2 steps ahead. He's not just 2 steps ahead of the fugitive, he's 2 steps ahead of us as the viewer. We don't know what he's thinking. He's always smarter. He knows when to play his cards, and I love that about his character. I think it's just a great written character, and I don't think you could have cast it any better than Tommy Lee Jones, even though it was rumored at the time that Gene Hackman and I believe Jon Voight were in negotiations to play that role, and I just don't understand how you could have gone anywhere else but Tommy Lee Jones, even though in 1993 Tommy Lee Jones wasn't the most well-known actor. I believe that this is what shot him up onto the A-list. Tommy Lee Jones is great in this movie. Him and his whole U.S. Marshals team is phenomenal. Everyone plays their parts well, including Joe Pantalone, Joey Pants. He's so good in this movie, and he comes back, and the whole U.S. Marshals team comes back for the sequel. But we're talking about The Fugitive, and this is also my favorite Harrison Ford movie. Yes, this is the guy who played Han Solo, Rick Deckard, Indiana Jones, but I always prefer The Fugitive, and that's because I really do love this character. This is an innocent, caring, smart man who loved his wife, who gets framed because of a pharmaceutical company set him up. Well, the one-armed man set him up the one-armed man killed his wife. His friend, Dr. Nichols, is the one who set him up, all because he found out that a drug that they are pushing is actually doing more damage than good, but, big pharmacy is going to always win out, so what do we got to do? We got to wipe Harrison Ford off this earth, and Dr. Richard Kimball needs to be framed for murdering his wife, and we're going to send him off to prison, and because no one believes him, he gets convicted, he's going off, and, well, he has no other option. And when a bus carrying all the other prisoners flips over, Dr. Richard Kimball sees no other option but to run from the law and find a way to prove his innocence. And that's when we're introduced to our lead marshals who are hunting him down. But what Harrison Ford does with this role is amazing. He plays this role this could have just been a simple, I gotta prove who did it. Who is the one who killed my wife? But he plays some of these scenes with such heart. And what really drives it home for me, and what really always I've gotten emotional a couple times, is that even though he's trying to prove his innocence and he's still grieving from the loss of his wife, he takes the time from a young boy who is being mistreated, actually. They're not giving him the right treatment. He actually figures it out that the kid needs somewhere else to get treated. He needs to be sent immediately to surgery or he'll die. He actually is talking to the kid while he's filling out his paperwork, even though he's not a doctor, he's pretending to be a janitor. And he's still like, okay, as a doctor, as a caring individual that I am, I'm going to make sure that this kid gets the right treatment, even if it ends up being me who gets caught in the end, because that's just me and that's what a real doctor should do. And Harrison Ford really portrayed that perfectly. That scene is done so well. It really is just great character development and makes you truly care about this guy, and you want him to prove his innocence because he didn't do anything wrong. And Tommy Lee Jones, even though he says, I don't care when he tells him that he didn't kill his wife because he has a job to do. It's not his job. He's not a lawyer. He's not there to prove that he is innocent or not. But Tommy Lee Jones and the rest of the U.S. Marshal team do seem a little bit weary of everything that they are being told, and they end up putting all the pieces together, and eventually it's revealed that, no, he is innocent. He should walk, and deservingly so. At the end of the movie, what happens? They have that little moment, and he says, I thought you didn't care. I don't. He takes the handcuffs off, and they drive away, and that's the end of The Fugitive. And I just love that movie, and it was just a fun little 90s action thriller. But this movie was huge at the time. This movie had a $44 million budget. It tripled that at the box office. Tommy Lee Jones won his first Academy Award, first and only for Best Supporting Actor. This is still his best role, so it was shot off like a rocket. And what do you do when a movie is that big and makes that much money for a studio? Well, 5 years later you decide, let's make a sequel. But we can't bring back Harrison Ford because that just wouldn't make sense. So we need a new Fugitive. And then instead of calling the movie Fugitive 2, they call it U.S. Marshals, which I'm guessing is because they were hoping to make maybe a series out of this surrounding the U.S. Marshals team and like Sam Gerard or Tommy Lee Jones being the lead character in it, which makes a lot of sense because Tommy Lee Jones definitely was the standout star in the first one, and he could definitely see him just solving many different cases or following many different fugitives. But I think this is why this movie in 1998 is not remembered. And that's because A, they called it U.S. Marshals instead of The Fugitive 2, and B, they should have just called it The Fugitive 2 because this is the exact same plot as The Fugitive from 1993. There is almost no difference. Right down to the fact that The Fugitive had a $44 million budget. This had a $45 million budget. The Fugitive was 130 minutes, and U.S. Marshals was 131 minutes. The plots are exactly the same. A fugitive has to prove his innocence. He gets arrested for something that, well, in this case, actually, Wesley Snipes did do it, but not for the reason that you're thinking. That he has to prove that there is some kind of conspiracy against him, and the whole time, it's still playing out the same plots. Like, instead of having a bus crash, this time we have a plane crash. A very well done plane crash, I might add. Right down to when they first escape, and we're looking for Wesley Snipes. Sam Gerard has to rally everyone up, tell him where he is, give the whole speech again, just not as good, of where we're going to put up some checkpoints, check every car that we can to find this guy. You know, he's still, and you know, he does that monologue just like in the first one, just not as well. And that's unfortunate because I actually really do enjoy U.S. Marshals. So to let you guys know a little secret about me, I saw U.S. Marshals probably in 1998. I saw the VHS, my parents had it. Me, my brother, and my cousins, we all used to like to actually play U.S. Marshals. We would all be these guys. We would quote the lines from the movie, and we just loved it. And it was definitely a fun movie for us, given we were pretty young kids, and it was just cool to see cops. We're basically playing our own version of Cops and Robbers based on a movie. But we had just so much fun doing it, and it wasn't until probably like 7 or 8 years later in the mid-2000s that I guess somebody told me and said, you know that The Fugitive is the first U.S. Marshals, right? And I went, what? I had no idea that The Fugitive even existed, or that it's a prequel to U.S. Marshals. Even though it came out first, U.S. Marshals is a sequel to The Fugitive. I just had no idea that it existed, and then I saw The Fugitive, and I was like, wow, The Fugitive is way better than U.S. Marshals. But you can't replace nostalgia, and that's the whole thing here, because I am a huge fan of U.S. Marshals. I saw last week that it was #1 on Netflix, and people were talking about it. My brother told me that he watched it, and I was like, you know what, it's been a long time. So last night I sat down, rewatched it, and I still had a lot of fun with it. Like I said, those flaws are there. It's the same exact movie. If you like The Fugitive, you'll probably like U.S. Marshals. It's not as good. There is no way that it could be as good. It gets a little cheesy. Some of the dialogue is not as good. Andrew Davis was not back to direct. But Tommy Lee Jones just nails that Sam Gerard character so well. And the supporting U.S. Marshals that are on his team also really nail their roles so well. You do actually care about all them. And Wesley Snipes is really good in this movie. He's a very sympathetic, co-protagonist in this because he's trying to prove his innocence even though he didn't do anything wrong. And we also get pretty early role from people who don't realize Robert Downey Jr. is in this movie 10 years before Iron Man. So this is a very old Robert Downey Jr. movie. This is actually the first movie I ever saw Robert Downey Jr. in, and I thought he was good. I really did enjoy him in it. He played that role pretty well. He has that snarky little face, and you could just tell, like, after knowing what the ending is, you could just see all the foreshadowing that he's going to end up being the villain. They really make sure they put those little shots in of his face, of him looking all menacing, like, okay, that's the bad guy. I mean, I didn't pick up on it when I was 6, but definitely now that I'm 30, it's pretty obvious, and they definitely laid it out for you perfectly well. It's just a regular old-fashioned thriller from the 90s. You know, it came out, I believe, in the summer, so it feels like a summer blockbuster. It just was promoted horribly. Like, this made a third of what the first one did, and I really do believe that just because you called it U.S. Marshals instead of The Fugitive 2. Now, I get it if you're trying to spin it off, but you gotta make that clear to your viewer. How are we supposed to know as the viewer that that is The Fugitive 2? Like I said, I saw U.S. Marshals first. I had no idea that it was connected to The Fugitive. How am I supposed to know? You didn't make that clear. So I really do feel like this movie was mismarketed. I mean, the reviews were pretty awful on it. From what I've been able to gauge, some people do have a nostalgic connection to it. Some people think that this movie is terrible. You know, it's really just in the eyes of the beholder. You know, you might like it. I can personally recommend it. It's a lot of fun. If you're going to watch The Fugitive, I say throw on U.S. Marshals right after. If you're a really big fan of Sam Gerard, you just want to see the guy be the smartest guy in the room for a little while, definitely throw it on. You're going to have a good time. I personally love it, but I want you guys to let me know, what did you think of The Fugitive and U.S. Marshals? Are you only a fan of The Fugitive? Do you like U.S. Marshals? Do you think I'm out of my mind and U.S. Marshals is a god-awful movie and it deserves that 27% on Rotten Tomatoes? Let me know in the comments section below, and please guys, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and you tell all your friends.